Good morning, everyone, and welcome to What Is It Wednesday. We're very excited to be back, but we are even more excited to bring you today's episode because throughout the month of October, we will be bringing you behind the scenes to a few of the places in the Barnes Museum that are never accessible to the general public. Today, we are bringing you behind the scenes to the basement of the Barnes Museum. And in particular, I'm going to be showing you the wine cellar. So let me pan out over here a little bit. You'll see that this portion of the basement that I am in right now is from 1865. And these large heating vents that hang low on the ceiling are exactly why we don't bring these to the public or bring the public down here. If I were to go through this door further out over here, this is the portion of the basement that is under the 1836, the original portion of the house. And on the floor right there is the original cistern to the Barnes Museum. You'll also notice that I have a humidifier over here to the right. There are several humidifiers down in the basement. That one is unplugged right now because they constantly run down in the basement, and I wanted to make sure that you could hear me. But these humidifiers constantly run to keep the basement at as much of an optimal museum preservation temperature as we can possibly get here, and we come very close. And it is also why we are able to leave the bottles, the dozens of jugs and bottles of wine and spirits and soda that we have at the Barnes Museum in the original spaces that the family would have kept them. They're being naturally preserved, and we're helping them out by keeping the humidity down. But the temperature down here in the basement is, excuse me, pretty perfect for preserving these original bottles, and this is where the family did keep them. I brought a few out here so you can see, and the reason why we have many of these bottles is, of course, because the family kept everything, but Grandma Sylvia Bradley, the matriarch of the family and the wife of Eamon Bradley, the person who built this house, brewed her own beer. And for those of you who have brewed your own spirits at home, you understand that there's a little bit of equipment that's needed to brew the beer, and we have some of that original equipment as well. In fact, this jug all the way on the end is Grandma Sylvia's, one of the original jugs of Grandma Sylvia's beer. Completely sealed, has not been opened since she brewed it. Sylvia also had diary entries, actually from her daughters, in fact, that said that Sylvia was brewing beer today and she brought it to a friend's house for dinner. So if you invited Sylvia Bradley over for dinner and she brought one of her homemade jugs of beer, you were in. She really thought something special of you. We've got a bottle right next to it of some hard liquor. The label is long since darkened and is unable to be read to see exactly what company or what spirits are in there. This third bottle, we have a sealed bottle of beer. Could have been Sylvia's, but also could have been purchased. This, I love this one. We have several bottles of Royal Ale. It seems to be, excuse me, a favorite of the family, and Royal Ale is from the Connecticut Brewery Company out of Bridgeport, Connecticut. So just like we showed you a few items several weeks ago in the summer kitchen that were down in Bridgeport, we have a brewery company there as well. Now we also have this wickered wine jug here, and what I love about this, here I'll get you a little close so you can see the beautiful pattern of the wicker as I come around the table and show you the original tag to it. Now this tag on the top, there's some handwritten scribble there, and that scribble actually says N.A. Barnes. Norman A. Barnes, that was Bradley's father. And this was from Fred Porter, and he was part of the wines and liquor company that gave him this bottle or sold him this bottle. So again, we have a few of the original bottles. Now over here is where the wine cellar is. Now, Again, we never let people down here, so I'm very excited to be able to show you. We've got a little bit of equipment that used to be used here at the Barnes Museum in the early years that we were a museum. That's kind of been here ever since. Please excuse that mess. But we do have more of Grandma Sylvia's jugs of beer right here. The temperature and the sound of this room is so completely different. I know that the video probably is not doing it justice, but it is keeping these bottles and these jugs all in the back quite well temperature controlled, which is great. We also have several glasses and tasting cups and whatnot, and that would have been used to enjoy some of these wonderful spirits. You've got some here. So this is the ever exciting wine cellar. Would also have been used as somewhat of a root cellar for food, especially in the 1860s, 70s, and 80s. Would not have just been used as a wine cellar. Bradley and Leela, especially towards the end of the family's occupancy here at the homestead, used it much more as a wine cellar. But in those 1800s, when the property was being used, not as 100% farmland, but as a working property with gardens and vegetable gardens and herb gardens and corn patches. We also have this little alcove, and this little alcove is inside the fireplace. Again, what's interesting is that with the humidifiers that we have here in the basement and with the temperature of the basement itself, this little alcove, the fireplaces are never used anymore here at the museum. We are able to keep what the family kept right in this space. It's one of those situations where if it's not broke, don't fix it. And sometimes, even though they're a little dirty, we do clean them every once in a while. You could tell we haven't done that in a little bit of time. But we are very excited to bring you behind the scenes and show you a little bit of the unknown and the unexpected of the Barnes Museum. If you brew your own beer or brew your own spirits, let us know if some of this equipment and these bottles look familiar to you, and maybe where you store your spirits as well. We'd love to hear all about it. And we look forward to seeing you next week on another episode of What Is It Wednesday Behind the Scenes. Have a great week.